So today I just wanted to take a quick look at the 1981 film An American Werewolf in London. So this is a horror film with some comedic elements mixed in here and there, or as well as some lighter moments perhaps. As far as the more classic or traditional horror or werewolf style film, this is definitely a classic amongst them. I definitely do love An American Werewolf in London. Honestly though, kind of took a few tries for this movie to grow onto me. The only reason is because the first time I ever watched it, I really didn't know what to expect, so I kind of really didn't get the whole thing with the more comedic elements mixed in. It kind of threw me off. And then of course on this recent rewatching, I definitely was able to appreciate the film a lot more. I definitely do enjoy it a lot more, and I was able to see it for what a great film it really is. So I'm glad that I was finally able to appreciate this film for the awesome that it really is. But this film does follow two younger men who are, I guess you could say, backpacking through the countryside, and they do have an unfortunate evening where they are attacked by a creature. One of the men dies, and the other one kind of winds up becoming inflicted with this werewolf curse. So the other young man, the one who had passed away, kind of pretty much acts as guide to the now werewolf person or character. But I really do like the storytelling here, especially how they kind of take the time to develop the characters, especially as we follow, I guess you could say, lead character David Kessler's healing process. He does take an interest in a nurse there, but we also do kind of follow him with his healing process, as far as being shocked by his dead friend popping in on him, as well as the foreshadowing that he is to become a werewolf with his, I guess you could say, his nightmares, which the first couple of dreams he has are actually definitely very beautiful before they take that gory element or end sequence. And then we do have that one last crazy dream with the, I guess you could say, the military ghouls where they're attacking his family. The first time I saw this, that was the one scene that really threw me off. I was kind of like, what in the world is going on here? But you know, even just for the sake of, because it does have a bit of humorous moments itself within that scene. I mean, it's definitely very subtle, but it's an interesting dynamic that is kind of infused or woven into the film. So I definitely do like and appreciate that aspect. I also do kind of like that one scene between David and the nurse Alex, where she's kind of trying to threaten that she's going to spoon feed him because he refuses to eat his food so that she can administer his medication to him. So even though it's just kind of like the fact that they kind of get each other to talk to one another on a first name basis rather than nurse or Mr. whomever, I really like that. It's very simplistic, it's cute, it's flirty. You definitely do become aware of the fact that they do have an interest in one another. So when David does leave the hospital and he stays with Alex for a while, that's not a scene that throws you off because you've come to expect it, because it's understood they do like each other, they do have an interest in one another. And it's also just the fact that she kind of follows him on this journey. She isn't aware of the fact that he's turning into a werewolf, maybe the fact that he's dealing with kind of like this weird or crazy psychosis that he's going through. So she's also just kind of trying to help him by getting him to the hospital so that he can seek proper treatment, maybe get a psychological evaluation if necessary. But it's definitely an interesting dynamic here, and the fact that, yes, she is a loved one who is willing to help him. Unfortunately, she just really doesn't see or understand how. And then, of course, getting into the special effects in the film, which I think most people will agree, even though practical effects are no longer in wide use, these, in my opinion, are the best example of practical effects that I have ever seen. Just throughout that werewolf transformation, I've never seen anything that detailed, and it's just very amazing. Even though it's just a short span of time that we're seeing this, it definitely does have that wow factor about it. As far as modern times, the only other scene that I can think of that possibly comes close would be Hemlock Grove, Peter's scene in which he transforms into a wolf. But you know, it definitely is a scene in the film that holds up extremely well, in my opinion. And it just kind of makes me think, you know, it's a real shame that there aren't more practical effects that are still in use today. Everything just kind of seems to go the CG route. Unfortunately, some films even use CG blood as opposed to corn syrup, and it's kind of like, come on. You know, if you're taking it to that an extreme, it just seems ridiculous, in my opinion. But, you know, I just cannot rave enough about these effects in this film. I think they're just fantastic. And obviously, when Michael Jackson saw these same effects used in this film, he definitely was, I guess you could say, very enthusiastic about getting them to work with him on his video Thriller. So you've pretty much just got the same crew, director, special effects guy working on his wolf transformation, as well as other special effects on that music video. And, you know, it definitely does show. It's one of those music videos that stands out as well. But, you know, I think just overall it's a very excellent film. I definitely do love the storytelling as well as the character development. You know, they really didn't slop it. It definitely is a lot of work. It takes a lot of skill, and it does take years of study, and you definitely do have to be dedicated and know what you're doing in order to pull off a very believable practical effect, or just an effect in general. So for filming purposes of this film, they did require 4 passports for crew members that would be traveling out of country to work on this film, which I think is kind of interesting because there really wasn't too much guff over getting the first 3. So of course we did have director John Landis, as well as makeup artist Rick Baker, as well as the 2 lead actors who were needing these passports. So it was for one of the young men that they gave issue about not wanting to, I guess, allow the work permit, because the excuse they were using is that there are enough American actors living in London. Why can't you just use one of them? So of course the director threatened to rewrite his screenplay and title it An American Werewolf in Paris. So I guess it was that threat that did allow them to get the permit that they were needing. Interestingly enough, of course, years later, in '97, we did get a sequel called An American Werewolf in Paris. But we'll talk about that in just a few moments. I'm kind of getting ahead of myself here. But yeah, I just kind of thought that was an interesting and funny little tidbit as far as the issue with the work permits, and, you know, kind of the threat that had to be issued in order for them to get their cast member, or, you know, one of their actors to be able to participate on this film. Also, just kind of like a weird little side note, there is reference to David's character being Jewish, you know, kind of like the nurse saying that she peaked, she confirmed it. So, you know, just because that was part of the the script, they did have to be careful when filming the nude scenes for the lead actor, because apparently he is not circumcised. So they did definitely need to maintain their continuity there. Just kind of a weird and random factoid that I threw in there, but I thought it was just kind of funny. So moving on to the film's sequel, the 1997 An American Werewolf in Paris. You guys are totally going to strangle me for this. This was literally the first film within this series or franchise that I had ever seen. So I'm using the excuse that I was too young to know any better, but for the longest time I preferred this film. I had honestly only seen it once in my lifetime until recently. I rewatched it for the second time ever. But at the time, I liked the film. I liked the fact that it had more comedic elements. To me, I just kind of was able to relate to the comedy in this a bit more. Of course, upon rewatching it, I just thought to myself, what in the world was I thinking? The original film, American Werewolf in London, is far superior. This is definitely a weaker story. I really don't care too much for the writing or the character development. My main complaint as well just happens to be the use of the CGI wolves. Definitely they do keep them in the dark. You don't see the wolf too much, or when we do have close-ups, we do have the, I guess you could say, the animatronic wolf. So we do get a break from having to look at the actual CG wolf, but I don't know. It's just, you know, that I think this was definitely when the change was happening, where things were leaning more towards CGI as opposed to practical effects. I really don't know why this had happened, but you know, everybody always wants to move forward with the technology and whatnot. The story itself, we do have, once again, a group of friends, and I guess they're on somewhat of a daredevil tour, and it's our lead character Andy, who they're basically on top of the Eiffel Tower. This guy is planning to bungee jump off of it. He notices that there's a young lady there who is wanting to commit suicide. She throws herself over the edge, and of course him, with the security, knowing that he's attached to a cord, jumps off and does save her. So the following day we discover that she happens to be a nurse at the hospital that he's been admitted to, and he pursues this young woman. Obviously he's interested in her, but I think to a degree, yes, he is concerned as to why she would want to end her life. And we do discover that she is a wolf. She does have a few issues that she was not able to control, that she felt guilty about, but ultimately I think it's the alternate group. I guess you could say they're I guess you could say a bit of fanatics who infected themselves with her blood so that they in turn could also become werewolves. So we do have that element as the subplot, but in my opinion it's just really not strong enough to really hold or carry the story. I know you do need an antagonist to move a story along, but it just really wasn't that interesting to me. And then of course, as I've said, my main complaint just happens to be the CG wolf. So that was in itself off-putting. This film soundtrack does have some fairly iconic music played throughout the film, which definitely does date the film, but you know, it really doesn't hurt it too much. It just kind of puts it into perspective as, you know, whoa, this is what was going on in my life at this time, just because the music was a clear reminder of that. But I definitely appreciate more the quirkiness from the soundtrack of the original film, American Werewolf in London. It features a lot more of classic music or rock music, but every single song title on that film features the word moon in it, which I kind of thought was just really, you know, it was a bit of a quirky, but it's, you know, it's kind of cute in itself. It follows its own theme. But American Werewolf in London, American Werewolf in Paris, as much as I did want to reminisce and like this film all over again, I just couldn't, because it was crud. You know, it's really not too bad a movie, but it's a weak story. And obviously Werewolf in London is the superior of the two. So I'm definitely glad I was not tempted to pick that up and add that to my film collection, as I was wanting to rewatch it and review this for you guys. But yeah, I really don't have anything too nice to say about this one, so I'm just going to go ahead and stop there, and I will talk to you guys later.
A naked American man stole my balloon.
What?